planting bare root dwarf apple trees. Take it out of the box. In step number 1, soak your roots 2 to 6 hours, but no more than 6 hours. Step number 2, use a pot or container that is 18 to 22 inches at a minimum with 4 drainage holes or more. Step number 3, your potting mix that you put together. 25% perlite, 25% vermiculite, and 50% potting mix. Add in a little bit of peat moss, and you can add in a cup or 2 of compost soil, and I also add about 1 to 2 cups of fruit and citrus trees fertilizer. I mix them together very well, and then I will water it before putting it into the pot's containers. Once they are in containers, then you can top it off with about a cup of azomite. Now let me go back and explain to you in more detail all the steps that I have just discussed. Now I went ahead and purchased a dwarf gala apple tree. This tree is going to grow to about 8 to 10 feet tall, which is the size I was looking for. Now for myself, I want to keep my tree closer to the 7 to 8 foot range, and so by doing so I will be able to keep it under the roof overhang in the wintertime. Now I go ahead and spend a little bit extra money and I buy air pots and I buy Grow Pro Root Master pots, because these type of pots are self-pruning and they also allow the roots to grow without forming root balls and circling of the roots. By spending a little bit extra money, I can manage the size of my tree and the roots and the healthiness of the plant by using these type of pots. So when it comes to fruit trees and apple trees, I try to spend the extra money to buy a better container. Now, there's been studies done that state that having a minimum of 4 drainage holes is important. I believe the first university was Ohio State University, stated that you have to have at least 4 drainage holes in order to have proper drainage. By having proper drainage, you allow the roots of the tree not to be sitting in water or in terms of having wet feet on a regular basis. So that's why having a good potting mix is very important. Now, if you choose not to have all this different soil amendments and you want to keep it simple, there's nothing wrong with using 100% potting mix. If you choose to go that route, that is perfectly fine. So you can do 100% potting mix, or you can do the method I discussed earlier, which is 25% perlite, 25% vermiculite, 50% potting mix, put in a little bit of peat moss, add your fertilizer, and I also add in about 1 to 2 cups of compost soil. Now I try not to add too much compost soil, although I like the nutrients in that. But the reason I don't add too much more is because it's really heavy and dense, and I want to keep my soil mix for pots as airy and loomy as possible so I have proper drainage, because there's nothing worse for an apple tree in a container than to have wet feet and continually be saturated and soaking in water. Now once you've taken care of the soil, what you'll need to do is water your tree very well in the container, and until you see new growth for the first couple weeks, you're going to go ahead and water this tree every 1 to 2 days. And then once you see some new growth, you can cut back to the normal watering cycle, which is basically about maybe once a week, more on hotter days and less during less hot days. You'll be able to know when you need to water by looking at the soil and putting your finger in the soil about 2 to 3 inches deep. And if it is semi-dry to dry, then you do need to water your plant. If the first 2 or 3 inches of the soil are damp or moist, then you're okay with not having to water. I'm going to go ahead and supply another video that talks about pruning, horticulture oil, and insecticide, and how to also get on a fertilizing schedule. And I'll explain those things in another video that will talk about basically apple tree maintenance. Thank you.